Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, and very good day to my fellow audience. I am Nur Shazliana binti Muhammad Zain, a second year student from the Faculty of Science and Technology from UKM, majoring in Environmental Science. Today, I will be presenting an article entitled Overconsumption of Energy and also Excessive Discretionary Food Intake Inflates Dietary Greenhouse Gas Emissions in Australia. It is a topic that connects both our personal health and also the health of our planet. How our dietary choices can actually impact our environment. Moving on, this presentation is based on a study that actually explores the relationship between what Australian eats and the greenhouse gas emissions, or also known as GHG, produced as a result. The key takeaway from this study is simple yet powerful. Eating too much, especially the wrong kinds of food, not only affects our physical health but also accelerates the climate change. Let us begin with a bit of background. Traditionally, I can say that dietary guidelines have focused almost entirely only on nutritional adequacy, meaning they were specifically designed to promote human health by ensuring people get enough essential nutrients in our daily life. However, as environmental concerns grow globally, scientists are beginning to recognize that our food system actually contribute significantly to environmental degradation, particularly through the emissions of greenhouse gases. Think about this for a moment. Have we ever considered the carbon footprint of what's on our plate? Certain eating habits, such as the overconsumption of meat and other processed food, especially discretionary food intake, have been shown to cause a significant rise in GHG. These emissions come from various stages, starting from the food production, processing, transportation, and even waste. Therefore, aligning our diets with the national health guidelines that have been prepared by the government may offer a dual benefit in either in improving our health and also in reducing the environmental damage. Now, moving on to the objective of this study. This study highlights four objectives. Firstly, this research aimed to quantify the greenhouse gas emission associated with the current Australian diets. Secondly, it is to compare actual dietary patterns to the national dietary guidelines. Thirdly, to identify which key food groups that contribute the most to the greenhouse gas emissions. And finally, to explore more on dietary modifications that promote both health and also the environmental sustainability. Moving on, let's talk more about the methodology of this study. The researchers used the dietary data from 2011 to 2012 Australian Health Survey from the Australian Bureau of Statistics, which included responses from 9,341 adults. This data was quite comprehensive and detailed. So to assess emissions, they used an input-output model, a method that helps estimate the environmental impact of producing various food items. This includes not just direct emissions, but also the indirect ones, such as emission from fertilizer use, water consumption, and up to transportation. In order to organize the data, foods were then categorized into two groups. Firstly, the first category is core foods. These are the essentials, such as meats, vegetables, fruits, dairy, and grains, the essential in our daily life. The second category is discretionary foods. This includes foods like processed meats, sugary snacks, fast food, soft drinks. Essentially, these foods are not necessary for a healthy diet and often contain a very high level of sugar, fat, and also salt. Now, let's move on to the key findings of this study. Firstly, the average greenhouse gas emission per day for males is around 18.7 kg of carbon dioxide daily, whereas for females, it is 13.7 kg of carbon dioxide per day. This number reflect the emissions linked to the food consumed each day, and they are quite significant number. Secondly, the main contributors to the greenhouse gas emission coming from core food, which is accounted for 68.4% of the total emissions. Of that, meat and alternative were the largest contributors in this food category, which responsible for 33.9% alone. Moving on to the discretionary food, though it not an essential food, it is still contributed around 30%, which is nearly one third of the greenhouse gas emission. The correlation between energy intake and greenhouse gas emission. The researchers found a moderate to a strong positive correlation with the Pearson correlation coefficient of R equals to 0.54. Or in simpler terms, people who eat more calories tend to generate more greenhouse gas emission. This is mostly because they consume more food overall, particularly meat and processed items, which are resource intensive to produce. Hence, they produce more greenhouse gas emissions. Let's visualize this. The scatter plots below, where each dot represents a person. The higher their daily calorie intake, the more emissions they are responsible for. This creates an upward trend, confirming that overeating actually equals to over emission, even though by someone. The study also examined 4 different diet patterns, which firstly, the recommended diet based on Australian dietary guidelines. Secondly, higher quality, lower emissions, meaning the diet actually offers a significant and sufficient amount of nutrition. Current average diet of Australian adults. Lastly, lower quality, higher emissions diet. There is one shocking finding, which the discretionary food emission in the worst diet pattern were actually 307% higher than those in the recommended diet. That's actually more than 3 times the amount coming from food that offers little to no nutritional value at all for us. So, what does this mean for us? The study suggests that the simplest and most impactful change that we can make is to actually reduce our intake of discretionary food. This change alone can actually lead to both better health condition for us and also reduce environmental harm. Additionally, diets such as vegetarian or vegan diets were also explored in this study. These diets show the potential to lower the greenhouse gas emission even further, particularly if people maintain the nutritional balance, meaning they get enough protein, iron, calcium, and other essential nutrients that comes from plant sources. Before that, let me emphasize this. Eating better doesn't necessarily mean eating less. It also brings the meaning of eating smarter. What can be done at the policy level? So, the researchers highlighted a few important recommendations or initiatives that we can do for a better environmental impact. Firstly is to integrate the environmental data into national dietary guidelines. This helps make sustainability a key part of health advice. Secondly, it is to run regular public health campaigns. These campaigns should raise awareness regarding issues like overconsumption and also to promote the benefits of core and nutrient-dense foods. Thirdly, to support carbon labeling on food products. Similar to the nutritional labels that we always see, carbon labels would help consumers make informed, environmentally responsible decisions on their food choices in their daily life. Hence, in conclusion, this study clearly demonstrates that dietary choices have a direct impact on the greenhouse gas emissions. Overconsumption on especially of meat and processed food again contributes significantly to the environmental damage. However, sustainable dietary patterns are actually achievable and also possible by reducing the discretionary food intake, which on the other hand, eating a balanced diet based on core foods and aligning with the national dietary guidelines, we can make more meaningful progress both for our personal health and for the planet. In the end, the message is very clear actually. What we eat today shapes the environment of tomorrow, not only in terms of our health, but also the health of our planet. Hence, that's all from me. Thank you for the attention, and I hope this presentation has encouraged and can be reflected in the future. So thank you very much.